How does the United States talk about press freedom abroad? How does it look abroad at other countries and shake his fist and wag his finger and say, you guys need to do a better job in regards to the way that you guys do your press? When Julian Assange is sitting in a prison, and by the way, a literal political prisoner, just lounging there, no law, nothing, basically sitting there. There's nothing. The judge is just holding him there. They're waiting in a certain limbo of sorts. Yes, there's going to be some other hearing, and there's probably going to be another hearing after that, and another hearing after that. The judge agreed with the premise that the United States gave. That's terrifying. But the judge came to the conclusion that his autism will get him to the point where he would kill himself. It was a very bizarre ruling. But at this point, we don't necessarily know where that's going to go. Well, Donald Trump was after him. Obama didn't go after him. Now, it wasn't that Obama didn't want to go after him. Obama was pretty egregious on issues of press freedom. Obama's thought, though, was more so, if we go after Julian Assange, does it not justify going after the press in this country? Meaning, Julian Assange is basically a publisher. He's basically, like a newspaper of sorts. And how do you justify going after him and not going after the press in the country? They couldn't separate the two. And so you had this kind of weird thing where they basically let him be. He was a pain in their ass, but the thought was let him be. The principle mattered more. Trump had no such predilection. And the press in this country didn't howl about it because it was Julian Assange. And in their mind was instrumental in Hillary Clinton losing the race. It's very weird, but I swear that's what's going on here when it's associated with us. Biden, it was unclear on where Biden was going to go with this. Because if I'm not mistaken, I haven't heard him make any direct statements. I'm talking about Julian Assange. But in this very specific instance, Press Freedom Day, Jen Psaki is asked directly about Julian Assange, pointedly questioned on the issue of Julian Assange and Biden administration's policy towards Julian Assange. Yes, Trump was going after him, but what about you? What about you? Are you and your administration going after Julian Assange currently, or are you going to issue a pardon and release? And think about that. A pardon for somebody who's not even an American citizen. He's somehow accountable to our laws, but he's not accountable to the protection of those laws. How weird is this, the thought behind this? And to get the cabal of vassal states to entrap him for all of those years. The torture was the point at that point. Meaning him being there, everybody knowing that he's there, the suffering and the pain associated with being stuck in that one booth, whether he was in a prison cell or in a specific sense, he was in a prison cell. And they moved him to a worse box. I guess the torture is the point. Even if Biden came out tomorrow and said he's free, I'm going to let you hear Jen Psaki's answer. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you allowing me to do it. So this is Jen Psaki, painedly, if that's a word, looking at the individual asking her this question that she doesn't necessarily want to answer her. at the very least, doesn't seem to want to answer. What about Julian Assange?
Do you have a second question?
Yes, I do. I'd like to ask about a couple press freedom issues. On Friday, we learned that the Justice Department last year seized the phone records of several Washington Post journalists. The Biden Justice Department defended this, saying that it was the sources they were after, not the reporters. But there are some press freedom advocates who are pretty concerned about that defense. Trevor Timm of the Freedom of the Press Foundation said that the Biden Justice Department gave a disturbing defense of the practice. Bruce Brown, the executive director of the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, said that it raises serious First Amendment concerns. Do you, as the government's top press officer, have concerns about reporters' records being taken, including in this instance?
Well, given this was an action taken by the last administration and the Department of Justice oversees, obviously, our legal actions, has already spoken to it, I'm not going to have anything additional to add.
The second part on press freedom is this marked International Press Freedom Day, which was celebrated on Twitter by the Secretary of State and the Vice President, who wrote, "A free press is critical to democracy." The whistleblower Edward Snowden responded by writing, "This would be more persuasive if the White House wasn't aggressively seeking a 175-year sentence for a publisher of award-winning journalism." This referring to WikiLeaks publisher Julian Assange. The Obama-Biden administration was infamous for taking a heavy hand toward reporters and leaks, including taking the Associated Press's call records and calling a Fox reporter a possible conspirator. But the Obama Justice Department decided not to prosecute Assange for fear of setting a precedent that could be used to prosecute journalists dealing with classified information. In the name of press freedom, will President Biden be intervening in the Assange case to stop the prosecution, or will he be allowing the Justice Department and the courts to sort this out?
Well, in the name of independent justice, we will allow the Justice Department, encourage the Justice Department to continue to be an independent Justice Department, which I know is different from what we saw over the last 4 years. So it feels funny to some people. Go ahead in the back.
She basically blew the answer off. We're just going to let the Justice Department be the Justice Department. Yeah, but I would imagine that there's some level of guidance that the president is giving to it, whether or not the president wants to aggressively get the person, or whether or not the president wants to basically give the person a pass. In fact, Biden can basically say, this guy gets a pardon, or on some level of an equivalent of, losing interest in the person and trying to extradite him to the United States. Blew the answer off, blew the question off, I should say. Just wanted to show it. I'll leave it. I mean, there's a hypocrisy, deep hypocrisy in any node or issue about press freedom. And the wild part about it is, when you think of, let's say, like the Washington Post and the New York Times, you think to yourself, well, wait a minute, why is WikiLeaks so different? Why is that so radically different? And it's because WikiLeaks just gives you, this is the information. See it for yourself. Here's CIA leaks. Here's, drone papers. Here's whatever. And you think to yourself, well, why is that so different than what the New York Times does? Why are they so animated about getting him? And you think to yourself, well, is it because, you never typically get to see source material when you're reading the New York Times. Oftentimes you're reading, this particular source said this particular person said this, and oftentimes those things are basically leaks from their own sources. CIA, FBI, basically intel. And so they would say anonymous sources said, or they would say sources close to, and they would write their story. It's different seeing the behind the scenes stuff. Meaning they may get leaks about stuff that they want you to see. It's different about having leaks that they don't want you to see. That's the difference. And Assange trespassed on that. The guy that was showing the world, basically, what goes on behind the scenes, basically truth, is basically implicated and wrapped in a crime and basically tortured for the last, 7 years. If that is not, emblematic of our world. I don't know what is. I'll leave it here. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks all.